New World. Dressrosa. After the rule of the Liku clan, Dressrosa ushered in its new owner 3 years ago. No, to be more precise, it is to welcome back its original king. 800 years ago, this clan was the original royal clan of Dressrosa. Only later, when the world government was established, the clan moved to the Holy Land Mariajoy, which gave the Liku clan a chance to become a royal clan. This family is called Don Quixote. Today, the one who rules Dressrosa is the last king of the Don Quixote clan, Don Quixote Doflamingo. Speaking of Doflamingo, people's first impression of him is that he is a vicious pirate, a powerful Shichibukai, ambitious, arrogant and inexhaustible. The world calls him Heavenly Yaksha. In the dark world, Doflamingo has a more resounding title, Joker. Whether it is the earth or the underground world, Don Quixote Doflamingo is famous, and everyone knows it. But what the world knows is only the surface of Doflamingo. Few people know what kind of person the real Doflamingo is. And at this moment, even the top cadre of Don Quixote family who knows Doflamingo best, I am afraid I don't know who Doflamingo is, because I turned into the Doflamingo in the pirate world. Inside the palace of Dressrosa. In front of the tall floor-to-ceiling mirror. Shin looked at the person in the mirror, not knowing what it was like. Casual blonde, wearing red sunglasses, wearing a flamingo coat like a ball of fire, an open thin shirt reveals angular abs and chest muscles, and a red and white cropped trousers on his lower body, with sharp corners under his feet. Red leather shoes. Who else can this arrogant dress be besides Don Quixote Doflamingo in One Piece? Shin, who had seen One Piece in the previous life, naturally knew who Doflamingo was. After accepting the memory of the original body, Shin knew well about Doflamingo's childhood experiences and previous experiences. Killing his own father with his own hands is really a cruel man. Shin silently looked at the self in the mirror. Now, no one can empathize with Doflamingo more than him. However, Shin still disagrees with many of Doflamingo's previous practices, such as father killing. Although Shin never considers himself a good person, he still has his own principles in dealing with things. If it was him, Huo-Mingu would be kept. Shin wanted to know what kind of expression would the once noble Don Quixote Hanagu look like when he killed his wife because of his naive thoughts, causing the 2 young children to suffer so much hardships and even to be killed. In fact, Shin's approach may be even more cruel to the kind-hearted Huo-Mingu than Doflamingo's direct killing of his father. Ha ha. Shin let out a deep laughter that was difficult to understand. At this moment, he had completely taken over the new identity of Doflamingo. After all, compared to Shin, who was just a trove of life in his previous life, crossing into Doflamingo is undoubtedly 1,000 times better. Ding. Suddenly, with a ding in his mind, Dover, hereafter referred to as Dover, was overjoyed, knowing that the special system of the Traverser was coming. A minute later, Dover rubbed his chin. This system is extremely simple, and its function is to increase the cultivation of all attributes. You only need to bless the system aura on someone, and the cultivation speed will be hundreds of times faster than before. In addition, there are various other effects of increasing cultivation. Of course, the system aura can also be blessed to objects, such as a room, which can also speed up the cultivation of people in the room, but the effect is far inferior to that of blessing to a single person. However, the halo blessing cannot be permanent and has a time limit. You must complete the tasks issued by the system to get more training time. There is only one mission issued by the system, and that is to expand the territory. Every time the territory is expanded to double the original, the system will reward 1 month of cultivation time, and if it does not double, it will be converted into the corresponding number of days in proportion. In addition, unknown oceans and deserted islands, and territorial systems that cannot be controlled stably are denied. Such a task is just what I want. Dover smiled slightly. Now that he has come to this world, wouldn't he come here for nothing if he doesn't do a big business? However, although the pirate world has many islands, large islands are basically occupied by the world government, powerful pirates, or a certain country. If they expand unscrupulously, they are likely to get caught up in even Dover. Feel the troublesome tricky. How to expand and where to expand requires careful consideration. After all, the strength is still not enough. In the world of pirates, the winner is king, and the loser is like an ant. The hypocritical world government is filled with countless ferocious pirates across the sea. Everything in this world depends on its strength. Although Dover is now Shicibukai, the king of Dressrosa, he has a network of underground world connections all over the sea. But it is far from enough to see the world government and 4 emperors standing on the top. Dover's position on his own strength is the upper and middle reaches of Shichibukai. Facing the emperor of the 4 emperors group, he can barely fight against each other, but once he meets the top powerhouses like 4 emperors Admiral or Garpreli, he can only run away, for the sake of it. Fortunately, when the system was opened, the novice spree rewarded a month of cultivation time, and Dover immediately decided to retreat for a month. Within a month, no matter who it is, no one is allowed to enter this room. Yes, Lord King. After the soldiers guarding the door were startled, they quickly took their orders. Boom. The door was closed tightly. A girl with light green wavy hair, golden pupils, heavy glasses, white skin, and a graceful figure also heard Dover's command and walked over in surprise. Master Monet. The guarding soldiers hurriedly saluted the girl, who was Monet the Logia Snow Fruit ability. At this time, Monet's hands and feet hadn't been transformed into a birdman's form by Luo, with slender fingers and shiny cardamom toes, which looked extremely beautiful. But the soldiers did not dare to look at Monet. They all knew that this beautiful girl who was as beautiful as an angel, but the elite killer among the cadres of Don Quixote family, was the key figure to subvert the Liku clan 3 years ago. You, go and call a team of soldiers to guard here. Monet pointed to a guard, who hurried to call someone, not dare to have any extra nonsense. Monet looked at the closed door, his eyes as if he could penetrate the door panel, and saw the man inside for whom she devoted all her heart. Young master, no matter who it is, Monet will not let him disturb you. In the original book, Monet gave his life to Doflamingo without any regrets. Her loyalty and piety to Dover are undoubtedly ranked first. Just now Dover's tone made Monet faintly feel that the next month is extremely important to the young master. Although she called an extra team of soldiers, she was worried that these soldiers might not have the guts to stop the highest cadres of the family like Toripel and Diamante. Therefore, Monet decided to stay here by herself. Inside the house, Dover devoted himself to cultivation. With the blessing of the system's aura, he clearly felt that his cultivation speed had increased exponentially, and even the bottlenecks of cultivation that had been difficult to break through in the past were easily broken with the help of the system. In a blink of an eye, Dover was immersed in the pleasure of strength growth. Sister, I haven't seen the young master for a month, so let me go. No, the young master has orders, no one can disturb him. HMPH. Last time I came here and you said you would have to wait for a month, but now 1 month has passed. Anyway, I just can't go in for the time being. A hint of worry flashed in Monet's eyes, but thinking of the solemn tone of the young master's order a month ago, Monet still blocked it firmly. Talking to Monet is her younger sister, Sugar, who has the ability to eat the fruit of childishness, and has kept her appearance at 10 years old. Ha! The sugar in the pink bear coat pursed his mouth in dissatisfaction, and his little finger slammed into the purple grapes in the basket, and then swallowed the grapes on the little fingertips in one bite, as if dissatisfied with my sister vent on the grape body. Ha! After finally settling the childish Sugar, Monet did not breathe a sigh of relief when a cold voice sounded next to him. Hey, Monet, know who you are? I am the highest cadre of the family. Monet turned to the speaker, and his expression became respectful. Master Toripel, Monet definitely does not mean to disrespect you. It's just that the young master is doing very important things and must not be disturbed. It seems that even in the face of Toripel, Monet is ready to stick to the end. You. Toripel stomped his stick to the ground angrily, causing 2 noses to sway in the air. What is important to Dover? Why don't I, the top cadre, know? Toripel was one of the first 4 people to follow Dover. Compared with the arrogant Diamante, Pika with well-developed limbs and simple mind, and Virgo, who left the family early to work as an undercover agent in Marine, Toripel I think I have the closest relationship with Dover among all people. Now, a junior who was only adopted by Dover a few years ago, behaved more than he knew, and even dared to defy himself. How to keep Toripal from getting angry? Just as Toripal was about to teach Monet, the door opened swiftly, and a slightly lazy voice that made everyone outside the door dare not have the slightest negligence came out. What's the matter? I just took a nap, and it's so lively outside. The sunlight coming in from the windows of the house shone on the man who walked out slowly, as if he had covered the man with a golden coat. It is difficult to look directly, like a god descending from the sky. This is our king. King. Toripal shuddered suddenly, as if going back to many years ago, when he first saw Dover as a child-release conquerors. At that time, the four of them all bowed down to Dover, who possessed the overlord temperament. The king. Our king. Toripal cried out seemingly unconsciously, and couldn't help kneeling to Dover as he did many years ago. King. Following Toripal's kneeling, the surrounding soldiers, maid, Monet, and Sugar all knelt down together. Dover looked at the people crawling under his feet, paused when he saw Monet, and finally his eyes fell on Toripal. In fact, Dover had already finished his training yesterday. The reason he didn't rush out was because he was thinking about the current situation and the next action plan. After all, as a traverser, he has both system tasks to complete and the vision of a prophet. In addition, his strength is even more different than before. Many originally planned deployments, plans and even rules naturally need to be made a change. With Dover's uncompromising prestige in Dressrosa, these changes can naturally be implemented without any discount at the lower level, but at the higher level, especially the highest cadre level, I am afraid that there will be no small resistance. Dover didn't want the decree to go on, but there were heavyweight cadres who violated the rules, and things were difficult to handle at that time. If you don't kill it, it will damage your prestige, and you are even more afraid that other cadres will follow suit. If you kill it, it will chill other family members and cause you to lose your power. Therefore, Dover spent a considerable amount of his brainpower on how to rectify the internal affairs. Coincidentally, when Dover heard the dispute between Monet and Toripal outside the door, Dover's heart moved, and this was the scene he deliberately created before him. Seeing Toripal, who was kneeling on the ground, shaking with excitement, Dover knew the effect was much better than he had imagined. Although Toripal has always regarded himself as an old predecessor, and even has a psychological advantage when facing him, there is no doubt about his loyalty. What do you do on your knees? Dover walked forward with a smile and helped Toripal. We are family, and the family's future business will depend on you, Toripal. The young master is serious. Toripal stood up, and his name changed from the previous, Dover, to the same, young master, as Monet and others. Dover smiled more brilliantly, let go of Toripal, and let the rest of the people get up, seemingly casually pointed at Monet, who bowed his head and stood with his hands, and called out, Monet. Yes. What is the young master's command? Monet looked up in surprise, and his golden pupils flashed with respect and admiration almost sacred. It's just that compared to a month ago, Monet was visibly haggard. After all, staying here this month, she hardly rested. Monet, except for special circumstances in the future, you won't have to go out to perform tasks. Come and be my full-time secretary. Yes? After Monet subconsciously agreed, he realized that something was wrong, and he was instantly stunned on the spot. Why, not willing? Yes. Monet nodded hurriedly, but after Yu Guang glanced at Toripal, Chao's face couldn't help but hesitate. She just offended Master Toripal. According to the usual practice, in this situation, no matter who is right or wrong, the inferior will have to make sacrifices and be punished. Monet has long been prepared to accept the punishment, but now. Dover seemed to know why Monet hesitated, and said indifferently, So, is there anyone who disagrees with this decision? As soon as the voice fell, Toripal, as a figure who has been in the ocean for decades, could not know that Dover was deliberately suppressing his prestige. But Toripal was not only not angry, but ecstatic. Dover, no, it's the young master. Finally, he is going to establish his absolute authority at the highest cadre level. In Toripal's cognition, Wang is the existence of everything. Even the benefactor and family members can't disobey or question him at all. Toripel only felt that although Dover did not have the usual arrogant posture at this time, there was a more ordinary Haki in the ordinary. He almost couldn't breathe because of Haki's depression, and it made him feel fascinated. The king's decision is absolute, no one can oppose it. Toripel bowed to the ground again, kowtow loudly. Dover's expression was calm, but his heart was loose. Toripel, who was the oldest and the most difficult to deal with, was settled, and the other 3 top cadres were easy to handle. Of course, with Toripel so acquainted, Dover naturally couldn't help but express it. He punished Monet appropriately, which was considered to be all the face of Toripel. Toripel's heart was even more moved. The stick and sweet jujube has always been the only way for the superior. Just as everyone was shocked at Toripel's total submission to Dover, a crisp child's voice sounded. Full-time secretary, can Tenten stay with young master? Then I also want to be young master's full-time secretary, okay. Sugar jumped up to Dover, grabbed Dover's big hand, and dangling to act like a baby. Regarding the deep meaning of the matter in front of her, Sugar didn't bother to think about it. Her careful thoughts only regarded Dover as the closest person, and the second relative was Sister Monet. Dover was amused by Sugar, and clicked on her cute little nose and smiled. Full-time secretary, do you know what to do? This. Granulated Sugar thought for a while, it was the first time I heard this word, the ghost knew what to do. I don't care, I just want to be with the young master and let the disgusting Toripel die. As the most important person in the family, Sugar has been personally protected by Toripel. Toripel, who was covered in mucus, was dissatisfied with Sugar for a long time, and the two often quarreled. Before the change, Toripel would definitely scold a smelly boy when he heard Sugar's go to death, but now he wouldn't say a word before the young master's order. Faced with Sugar's unreasonable harassment, Dover felt very cute and rubbed his cute bear's head. Well, you don't have to stay in the Kadri Tower all the time, you can come to me at any time. Really? Granule's eyes widened in surprise, she thought the young master would not agree at all. After all, her job is to make a steady stream of coolie toys for the family. Of course it's true. Dover nodded surely, understanding Sugar's doubts. Yeah. Sugar jumped up happily and gave Dover a big kiss on the cheek. Monet silently watched his sister and the young master acting like a baby, and his heart was full of warmth. Such a scene would never be imagined by their sisters in their lonely and helpless childhood. Everything they had was given by the young master. For the sake of the young master, it doesn't matter if you give your life. The wide palace hall. The walls are carved with ancient patterns, telling that the hall has at least 1,000 years of history. This was built during the reign of the Don Quixote family. At the far north of the hall, on the high throne, sat a young, haughty, tall and forbidding figure. His Royal Highness, the soldiers, cadres and famous people of Dressrosa who were called up all know that it is their king Don Quixote Doflamingo. Hello, do you feel that His Majesty the King seems a bit different from before? Indeed, it seems. It seems even scarier. Go, the dog can't spit out ivory. Obviously. Yes. It's even more powerful anyway. Didn't you see that no one of the highest cadres in the family dared to speak? That was not the case before the Tingui. When you say this, it seems that there is such a thing. The top cadre is at the forefront of the crowd, except for Wilgo, who is undercover at Marine, and the other 3 are all on the list. The 3 of them held their breath, not as casual as they used to be. Seeing Dover for the first time in a month, Diamante and Pica, like Toripel, were all overwhelmed by Dover's compelling haki, and had nothing to do with Dover's absolute authority to establish himself. Opinion. Monet. Who else hasn't arrived? Dover leaned on the throne, speaking with a trace of laziness. Everything went smoother than he thought. After Toripel, there was no objection in the top cadres, and the cadres below were the only ones looking forward to it. Monet quickly changed his identity and changed into a black tight-fitting skirt. According to Sugar, Dover secretly told Dover that, my sister wears this way to be more solemn and to reflect the majesty of the young master. Dover can only smile helplessly. How did Monet know that the black tight-fitting skirt outlines her waist more slender, and also sets off the stalwart of her chest, almost touching Dover's face when talking to Dover? Enlightened young master, in addition to Mr. Virgo, Miss Violet has not yet returned from performing tasks outside, and Baby 5. Monet pushed the thick glasses on the snow-white bridge of his nose with one hand, and held a copy in the other. File. I heard that the villain in the neighboring town proposed to her and is preparing for the wedding. Dover nodded slightly. Monet glanced at his sister Sugar, who was sitting next to Dover happily eating grapes, and the young master teased her cute little face with his big hands from time to time, causing Sugar to shake her head in dissatisfaction. The corner of Monet's mouth could not help but bend slightly, and then quickly stopped, regaining solemnity. Seeing that Dover had no more instructions, Monet bowed back, walked to the steps, unfolded the documents in his hand, and began to read the highest order of King Dressrosa. The approximate content of the instruction is as follows. 1. The status of all members of the family is higher than that of ordinary citizens. This was also the default in the past. But the instruction also added a layer of restraint to family members, that is, not to infringe the people without reason, otherwise severe punishment will not be neglected. 2. All Dressrosa nationals except senior cadres must wear an identity medal, which includes name, photo, address, position, etc. This command obviously has strong celestial characteristics. This is what Dover specifically emphasized. He doesn't want Dressrosa to be easily invaded by the Luluo Alliance or other enemies like the original book under his own control. The identity of the Celestial Dynasty is proof. It is undoubtedly a good way to prevent it. 3. All Dressrosa's citizens can prove their abilities in front of at least one family cadre in any way and in any form, and then they can join the family and become a member of Don Quixote family. 4. All Dressrosa nationals must pay taxes every year in accordance with the law, or become hired workers to serve the family. This family member can be automatically exempted. The various directives involve all aspects, including vigorously developing the agricultural trade industry, increasing military training, and so on. There are also instructions that only the core members of the family know, such as stopping the boring trick of turning half of the people into toys. As for doing so, it will result in a shortage of sufficient labor for the ongoing underground arms business, but Dover is not worried, because soon, Dressrosa will usher in sufficient free labor. But even the instructions announced on the surface are enough to make people feel turbulent. It is the first time everyone has heard of many nouns. On the one hand, they feel that they are novel, and on the other hand, they are a little frightened. I don't know what the purpose of the king is for doing this. Only some people of insight can see that although the king's instructions are far from being as kind as the former King Liku, they are quite beneficial to the overall development of the country. There is only one thing that everyone clearly understands: Dressrosa will change drastically from now on. Soon after Monet finished reading, Dover got up and left the hall. As soon as Fang left, there was an immediate sensation in the hall. People couldn't help but boiled and discussed violently with those around them. Dover didn't seem to hear the louder and louder sound of the rear hall, and said to the secretary Monet, who was behind him, "Go and call the pirate inside." Yes, Bellamy. Because Bellamy admired Doflamingo so much, he went to Dressrosa to make offerings almost every year, but he didn't see Dover several times. This time, he caught up with the opportunity. "It's really noisy, just turn them all into toys." The granulated sugar sticking around like a brown candy, covering the ears of the bear on the hat, said angrily. Dover squeezed the sugary little face. No matter what the people in the hall thought or how they talked, he and Doflamingo's instructions must be executed meticulously. This is something everyone in Dressrosa knows very well. Bellamy crawled on the ground religiously, Jhin shaking slightly all over his body. Finally saw that adult again. From a very young age, Bellamy worshipped Doflamingo. He despised the ignorant people in his hometown and the innocent pirates in the sea who desperately pursued illusory dreams. In his mind, only Don Quixote Doflamingo is a real pirate. Therefore, when he met Doflamingo in a tavern a few years ago, Bellamy resolutely led his men to join the Doflamingo pirate group. Since then, his pirate ship has been flying the Don Quixote family logo. This is Bellamy's proud life of glory. However, Bellamy did not know that Doflamingo never regarded him as a member of the family, and from the beginning to the end, he used it as a tool that could be discarded at will. "Your name is Bellamy, right?" There was a faint voice from above. Bellamy had never heard such a gentle voice from Lord Doflamingo, and he was so excited for a while. Yes, yes. Bellamy's face flushed, and she stammered. Such a big man, but stupid like a toy. I really don't know what young master is looking for such a person. The sugar sitting next to Dover glanced at Bellamy below, stuffed full of grapes. Little mouth grumbled. Monet, who drew Bellamy to the side, couldn't help but grin, and then cast an annoying look at Granule, blaming her for talking too much. Bellamy heard it too, his face flushed even more. Foo ha ha ha. Dover let out a deep laugh. Bellamy, you are slapped. Bellamy clenched his fists and did not get Doflamingo's approval, which was the most unacceptable thing for him. Master Doflamingo, please allow me to prove my strength. Prove yourself? Dover's eyes were interesting. Well, then I will give you a chance. If you can beat my secretary Monet, I believe in your strength. Thank you, my lord, I must let you down. Bellamy was overjoyed. He stood up and looked at Monet, who was walking towards him. Although you brought me to see Master Doflamingo, I should have thanked you, but I'm sorry, I won't be merciful in the next battle. Monet, who was in a black dress and skirt, was very charming. She covered her mouth and smiled. You don't have to worry about others at all, Mr. Bellamy. Since it is the order of the young master, please show your strongest strength. Bellamy snorted, and it seemed that the whole little woman who seemed to be weak in front of her, like the little demon next to the adult, looked down upon herself. Bellamy secretly decided that even if it would annoy the adult, he would let this little woman know how good he was. Hey! Bellamy let out a low growl, squatted down with his legs, and began to accumulate strength. He is a spring fruit-capable person. The longer the charge time is, the more violent the next attack will be. Now, I said young master, sister won't kill that guy, right? Sugar's delicate fingers put a grape into Dover's mouth, and said nonchalantly. Who knows? Dover smiled casually, opened his mouth and swallowed the grapes from his mouth, feeling a surprisingly smooth touch on his lips. Sugar retracted his finger, inserted another grape, and put it into his mouth, and then looked bored at the battle below. Said it was a battle, but in fact, Monet had been standing still and didn't move. On the other hand, Bellamy used the spring force to jump up and down like a rabbit. However, his attack fell on Monet, but all penetrated the past without exception. What the hell is going on? Bellamy's forehead was covered with cold sweat, no longer the aura. At this time, a gentle female voice sounded in his ears. I am a Logia snow fruit capable person, and your attack has no effect on me. Bellamy was stunned for a moment, and at the same time, a slender jade hand was printed 1 centimeter in front of his chest at the same time. Boom! An icy wind and snow burst from the palm of Jade's palm, and Bellamy's strong body suddenly flew out, vomiting blood. However, the pain of the body is far from the despair of Bellamy's heart. He was defeated. In front of the most respected Doflamingo, he was easily defeated. Understood, Bellamy? Seeing Bellamy, who fell to the ground struggling to get up, Dover showed no sympathy in his eyes. You have no ability to prove your strength. You and the naivety you despise childish pirates, there is no difference. Dover got up and walked slowly towards Bellamy, whose eyes were increasingly desperate. By the way, I can tell you one thing. You are not an opponent of Monet. In this sea, you are completely out of rank. In other words, you, Bellamy, are actually just rubbish. Every word of Dover pierced Bellamy's heart like a steel needle. On the basis of such a rubbish why do you get on Lousy's boat? Dover stopped and looked coldly at Bellamy, who was struggling to sit up at his feet, with a cold wicked smile on his face. Answer me, Bellamy. Bellamy trembled. By me. For my loyalty to you. Faithful? Dover laughed loudly. That is indeed a rare thing, but in this age, loyalty without strength is the least valuable thing. Bellamy, don't you understand? I don't know when. Several invisible threads wrapped around Bellamy's limbs and pulled it into the air. Dover moved his fingers lightly, and the thread that was harder than a steel wire slowly tightened. What? Bellamy let out a scream. The weak can't even decide how to die, Bellamy yo. The line is getting tighter and tighter. Dover made a soft staring at Bellamy, who bit his teeth to prevent him from screaming. He nodded slightly in his heart. It seemed that this person was indeed a useful material. Of course Dover didn't really want to kill Bellamy, let alone make it boring. Dover needs Bellamy to do something for him, but Bellamy seems to him to be too weak at this time, especially since he has no real knowledge of his own strength, so Dover decided to give it in advance. A lesson that Bellamy won't understand until 5 years later, that is, Bellamy's defeat by Luffy in 5 years. Please, give me another chance, Lord Doflamingo. Enduring the pain that penetrated into the bone marrow, Bellamy squeezed out a beast-like growl from between his teeth. Patter. Bellamy fell to the ground. Dover released the thread in his hand. Very good resolution, but Bellamy, it's not enough to say it. You must have results to prove yourself. I heard that your pirate group is still in East Blue, so let's do it in East Blue. In the name of Don Quixote, occupy all the places in East Blue that are not under the jurisdiction of Marine. After that, Dover took Monet and Sugar and turned and left. I will never let you down again, Lord Doflamingo. Bellamy was the only one left, screaming for his orders. His nose and tears were all over his face, and he didn't care about it. Young master, does it really matter if such an important matter is handed over to the Bellamy pirates? On the way back to the bedroom, Monet asked worriedly. The task that the young master had just given Bellamy was undoubtedly a military action, and Monet obviously did not trust Bellamy's ability. East Blue is the weakest sea area in the 4 seas. With Bellamy's strength, as long as you don't provoke Marine and those hidden monsters, nothing will happen. Dover looked deep. East Blue is his future destination. Bellamy, just a pawn he laid out in advance, is also a kind of temptation. Although East Blue is said to be the weakest in the world, it is the protagonist's luck. According to the original work, both generations of One Piece were born in East Blue. Dover chose East Blue as the place to conquer in the future, which is also an important reason. Speaking of the current East Blue, 2 people have to be mentioned. One is a marine hero, Monkey D. Garp, whose strength is still unknown. One is the Golden Lion, who is known as the existence of the 3 legendary pirates along with Roger and Whitebeard. Since escaping from Impel Grand Prison more than 10 years ago, direct sales have disappeared. Only Dover, who has seen the theater version, knows that this person should be hidden above East Blue. Although Golden Lion was defeated by Luffy in 3rd gear in the theater version, Dover would not naively think that Golden Lion is really that easy to deal with. The strength of Garp and Golden Lion can be said to be the ceiling of the pirate world. Dover wants to conquer East Blue, and these 2 are the biggest obstacle. It should be said that a month ago, Dover thought and would not want to be an enemy of these 2 people, but now Dover's mouth is slightly tick, his strength is not the same. 1 month of cultivating under the blessing of the system aura is equivalent to 8 years of cultivating outside, and the results obtained far exceeded Dover's initial expectations. First, Conqueror's haki has been greatly improved, especially the armed color and Conquerors. Earlier, the haki that Toripal, Diamante and others felt in Dover was far more than before, which Dover inadvertently revealed. According to Dover's own estimation, even if his current haki is still far behind 4 Emperor's Admiral, it will not be too far behind. Secondly, in terms of fruit ability, not only have all the previous moves have been strengthened, Dover is also developing several powerful new moves. Third, Dover's physical strength, speed, strength and even resilience, etc., have all been greatly increased. The above 3 points are Dover's daring to covet East Blue's backing. However, Dover is not a fool who is arrogant when he has the strength. He needs a more detailed plan to seek East Blue. Seeing that the young master didn't change his mind, Monet stopped talking. She is a smart woman. Although it is the first time to be a secretary, she knows what to say and what not to say. It is her only responsibility to serve the young master. When they arrived at the bedroom, a row of beautiful maids dressed in cool clothes stepped forward to serve Dover to sleep in peace. Monet pulled up the sugar and was about to retreat. Unexpectedly, the sugar broke away from her hand, jumped onto the big bed at Dover enough to sleep 5 or 6 people, covered the quilt, only revealed a cute little head, and pouted. I don't want to go, I want to sleep with the young master today. Monet was shocked, and hurriedly stepped forward to pull up the sugar, but the sugar buried his entire body in the golden silk quilt. Monet was extremely helpless, so he had to look at the young master with anxious eyes. Dover was also amused by Sugar's behavior, and he waved his hand indifferently. Forget it, let her stay here tonight. Yeah. Long live the young master. Granulated Sugar immediately poked his head out again, cheered, and then swaggered to instruct a maid to help her get a new basket of grapes. Seeing that the young master was accustomed to sugar, Monet had no choice but to withdraw by himself, but he sighed slightly in his heart. Although the young master's mind has become more elusive, he is getting better and better with the people around him. My sisters really don't know how to repay the young master. In fact, Monet was wrong. Dover's goodness is only relative to the few people he absolutely trusts. In the hearts of most family members, Dover felt more terrifying and awe. When Dover lay on the bed, the tender and soft body of the Sugar immediately pressed against him and slipped into his arms. Dover finally realized Monet's helplessness just now. Sugar is really childish. However, Dover did not feel uncomfortable, but felt a touch of warmth that he had never experienced before. In his previous life, how much he wanted to have such a sticking sister. With this kind of warmth, Dover embraced the Sugar, and quickly fell asleep at ease. The new decree was quickly issued across the country, and no matter how people talked about it, Wang's order must be implemented immediately. In an instant, Dressrosa started a full-blown restructuring up and down. Dover did not take possession of the family members and still did not change their nature and harmed the people, and was killed on the spot by Toripal as a typical example. Nor did he take care of a certain town's heroic intent to use bribes to avoid taxation, and Pika stoned him. Squeeze, and all the family wealth will go to the treasury. Dover hasn't taken care of these various processes, all he wants is the result. At this moment, in the palace chamber, the three highest cadres of the family are reporting the results of the past half-month to Dover. Young master, the rules you set really work. Toripal said, through the medal of identity, we have caught a lot of enemy spies, and there are more than a dozen of marines. HMPH. Those marines who do not live or die are really hard-mouthed. They are almost tortured to death and refuse to say that they are marine. On the side, Diamante said bitterly. The fact that so many marine spies had been mixed in the country made him feel very shameless. Pika's shrill voice sounded. They are afraid that we will ask Sengoku, damn it's marine. Listening to the verbal criticism of marine by the three top officials, Dover didn't take it seriously. Although he is Shichibukai, marine, with Sengoku as the marshal, has never assured him. It is not a surprise to send a spy to monitor him. No, Dover also sent a spy to join Marine, and it has become Marine Vice Admiral. Those Marine. Dover thought for a while, and said, send someone to send a letter to Sengoku, saying that 100 million Baileys will be replaced by one person, and if they don't agree, they will all be killed. The plain tone made the atmosphere suddenly quiet. Diamante was taken aback for a moment, and then laughed loudly. Young master, you are such a genius, you knocked the bamboo stick on Marshal Marine's head. By the way, young master, this time we also arrested an unexpected old immortal. Oh, who is it? King Liku. Toripal's vagina. 3 years ago. The reason why we didn't kill this old guy was because we needed his daughter to serve us. Now Violet is not in the country, young master, it's better to do it now. Killed King Liku secretly to avoid future troubles. King Liku? Dover was slightly surprised. In the original book, King Liku also entered the bullfighting arena to help his granddaughter Rebecca win Mara Mara fruit, which shows that this person has been hiding in Dressrosa for so many years. And 3 years ago, Violet asked for her father to be released at the expense of serving for the Don Quixote family, which is a joke to Dover now. A subjugated princess, even if the ability is very rare, what qualifications does it have to make demands on the winner? What's more, there is a sugar bug in the family. Just turn King Liku into a toy, so everyone can forget him. But the matter was over, and Dover didn't bother to correct his previous mistakes. Bring him up. Soon, King Liku, with gray hair and vicissitudes of life, was escorted in by soldiers. Doflamingo. As soon as Fang saw Dover, King Liku's old gloomy eyes immediately burst out with a strong hatred, and let out a low growl with gnashing teeth. Facing the fierce gaze of King Liku trying to choose people, Dover showed a faint smile. It's been a long time, Lord Liku. You bastard. What has turned my country into? King Liku struggled frantically, but was pressed to the ground by the soldiers. Dover's expression fell cold. King Liku, you can't talk nonsense. Dressrosa has been my Don Quixote family's territory since ancient times, you should know it? King Liku did not answer. No matter what the history of Dressrosa is, he will never forgive what Doflamingo did to this country 3 years ago. Dover looked coldly at King Liku like a clown, struggling desperately on the ground, but couldn't get rid of the 4 big iron-like hands on his body. For a long time, King Liku gave up the struggle, and the enemy was right in front of him, but he couldn't do anything, even to stand up. Thinking of this, King Liku couldn't help feeling sad, and burst into tears for a while. What can be changed by the incompetent rage of the weak? King Liku, as the subjugator Kun, you should understand this very well. Dover leaned on the soft and comfortable throne, his tone indifferent. King Liku gradually calmed down, raised his head, and looked up at the young figure above that was more terrifying than 3 years ago. Doflamingo, in order to find me, you made the so-called identity medal to censor the nationals. Now the goal has been achieved. If you want to kill, you have to know it. For you? Dover smiled disdainfully. King Liku, you look too high on yourself. But when you bring you here, there is really something I want to ask your opinion about. After all, you have been the king of Dressrosa for decades. Shouldn't you know better than me about the situation in neighboring countries? There was a sudden surge of great anxiety in King Liku. What do you mean by this, Doflamingo? Marine Headquarters, Marineford. Marshal's Office. Since becoming Marine Marshal, Sengoku has a habit of watching relevant information sent by marine spies from all over the world every day. Although this task is extremely complicated, as the Marine Marshal of this generation known for his brains, Sengoku is extremely easy to deal with. However, something happened recently. Even with Sengoku's wisdom, I felt quite a headache and hesitation. This is the 15th day, and there is no news from Dressrosa. Doflamingo, the ruler of Dressrosa, although he is Shichibukai, how can Sengoku feel relieved about that terrible man whose temperament is completely unpredictable? Therefore, Sengoku sent more than 10 marine spies one after another to sneak into Dressrosa. But this kind of thing cannot be brought to light. After all, Doflamingo is Shichibukai, and theoretically stands on the side of the government. This also resulted in Sengoku not being able to directly question Doflamingo even if he knew that Dressrosa's marine spy might be in an accident. Otherwise, once it gets into the government, it will be yourself in the end. Sengoku was considering whether to send a few more capable men to Dressrosa to look up clues when a seaman broke in. Report to Master Marshal. Here is a letter from a secret channel. Oh? Sengoku was surprised. Marine secret channel. Only very important news will be quickly passed to him through this channel. Who sent it? The Marines looked blank, obviously not knowing. Sengoku shook his head, knowing that this must not be easy. He took the envelope, glanced at it, and his expression was condensed. On the surface of the envelope, the emblem of the Don Quixote family was printed impressively. Could it be that? Sengoku faintly guessed the contents of the envelope, hurriedly opened it, and after reading it quickly, his face immediately became extremely difficult to look at. The letter was sent by Doflamingo. On it were written the names, characteristics, and even portraits of more than a dozen marine spies he sent to Dressrosa. This alone is not enough to make Sengoku gaffe. What made Sengoku extremely annoyed was that Doflamingo actually let him spend 100 million baileys for another person. A dozen people are 1 billion baileys. This is really outrageous. This heavenly yaksha grabbed the money and grabbed him Marshal Marine's head. For a moment, Sengoku even had the urge to send out Marine Admiral. Heavenly yaksha of dammit, Doflamingo of dammit. Sengoku's face was almost flushed, and several times he tried to make up his mind to teach Doflamingo a lesson, but he held it back. He was caught in a dilemma, and Sengoku, known as the resourceful general, had no idea for a while. In the final analysis, he did not take precedence in this matter. Marshal Marine was monitoring Shichibukai. Although there were excuses, the lawsuit was brought to the government and even 5 elders. It was Sengoku who was the one who had the trouble. It may cause all kinds of bad influences. Such consequences, even if he is martial marine, can't bear it. So, can you only agree? Sengoku squeezed his fist tightly. 1 billion Baileys are higher than the rewards offered by the entire Don Quixote family, and Doflamingo dares to speak so loudly. Sengoku doesn't want to pay a penny in his heart, but what can he do if he doesn't? Don't care about the life and death of the dozen or so marine spies? If Sengoku really did this, then he would not be the Sengoku of the Buddha. In the end, after an extremely fierce ideological struggle, Sengoku still pinched his nose to admit it. Pay for it? Isn't it just 1 billion Baileys? He is dignified martial marine can't afford it. But don't let other people know about this, especially the guy Garp. Sengoku called his most trusted confidant and solemnly asked him to leave. The confidant hadn't walked far, and suddenly heard a loud noise from behind. Turning his head and looking at it, a scene he had never seen before made him instantly dumbfounded. Marshal Sengoku, who has always been gentle and wise, even slapped the desk to pieces, and pieces of sawdust were flying everywhere. Not to mention how irritated and depressed Sengoku was, how Dover later honestly and unceremoniously accepted 1 billion Baileys. Just talking about King Liku, after hearing Dover's words, a great anxiety surged in my heart. What the hell do you mean, Doflamingo? Dover said unhurriedly, the kingdom of Prodens, the kingdom of Osno, and the kingdom of Carthia. You should be familiar with these 3 countries, Lord Liku. King Liku is of course familiar with these 3 kingdoms closest to Dressrosa. Among them, the kingdom of Prodens has the best relationship with Dressrosa under his rule. Its King Elisabello II is also a good friend of King Liku. Between the 2 countries, also help each other from time to time. Doflamingo, what exactly do you want to do? King Liku looked at the young man on the throne. A smile appeared at the corner of the youth's mouth, but this smile made King Liku shudder. 3 years ago, when he tried to seize Dressrosa, he had smiled like this. Seeing the change in King Liku's face, Dover smiled and said, "It seems that you have already figured it out, so tell me all the information you know. Maybe I'm in a good mood, so I let you go." Asshole. King Liku's voice was trembling. The demon, Doflamingo, really wanted to fight the surrounding 3 countries. Isn't Dressrosa alone enough to harm him? It even harms neighboring countries. Pay attention to your words, you are immortal. Suddenly, a strong wind rang in his ears, and a cold hard foot kicked on his face. King Liku's left face immediately swelled, and blood ran down from his mouth. Diamante looked at King Liku like an ant. If the young master hadn't spoken yet, he would have killed the old immortal long ago. King Liku didn't seem to feel the pain on his face, and still stared at Doflamingo. You are not afraid? Marine knows these things and exposes your evil deeds? It's just a Dressrosa. With the identity of Dover Shicibukai, Marine will not pursue it yet. But once Dover expands his territory recklessly, Marine will never let it go. It seems you are not too dumb. King Liku could see this, but he didn't have been a king for decades. But, who said I'm going to do it myself? A sly look flicked across Dover's eyes. Monet, the letter from King Osno has arrived. Yes, young master. The secretary Monet, who has been standing behind Dover in an elegant black dress, said to Kaido. Read out. Monet immediately took out a letter with the logo of the Osno kingdom and began to read the contents. The letter was written by King Osno himself. It stated that he had followed Dover's advice and fought against the kingdoms of Prodens and Carthia at the same time, and had set the date and place for the decisive battle, and asked Dover about the arms and manpower he had agreed to. When will it arrive? Impossible. How could King Osno be so stupid? King Liku couldn't believe it. Human ambitions are like weeds on the wasteland. As long as you give him a fire, it will burn uncontrollably. King Liku, you look down on human greed too much. Dover's face was full of playful smiles. I promised King Osno to help him destroy the kingdoms of Prodens and Carthia, and divide the land of the 2 countries with him. King Osno agreed without hesitation. What? Liku Wang was shocked and sat on the ground, murmured in disbelief. How could it be like this? How could it be like this? The next moment, King Liku suddenly thought of something, and suddenly sat up. Doflamingo, you lied to King Osno, you won't give half of the land to Osno at all. King Liku, who had been deceived, didn't believe that Doflamingo would be so kind. Fuhahaha. Dover laughed lowly. King Liku was right. He never intended to fulfill his promise to King Osno. Not only that, he also wanted the land of Osno Kingdom. Dover doesn't think this is a despicable act. In this powerful pirate world, there have always been ambitions and interests entangled between nations. Only the weak who are stupid and unknowing will entrust their destiny to others, will be blinded by ambition and believe in the so-called promise. King Liku was completely desperate. He seemed to see 3 more countries, about to be reduced to hell. You demon! Demon! Dover made the decision to bring the 3 neighboring countries into control first. In today's new world, with the rise of the youngest 4 emperors' red-haired shanks, the water in many sites is too deep to easily interfere. Although the kingdoms of Prodence, Osno, and Katya also have their own independent royal families, they are not protected by tyrannical forces. On the other hand, these 3 countries happen to form a quadrilateral with Dressrosa. As long as Dover controls the 3 kingdoms in his hands, he can turn them into a chain of protective islands blocking the front of Dressrosa. That way, even if attacked by a powerful force like the 4 Emperors' Regiment, Dressrosa would have enough time to react and buffer. Of course, the biggest reason is the rewards of the system. The area of these 3 countries is about twice that of Dressrosa, which can increase the training time by at least 2 months. In short, to conquer these 3 countries is profitable without any harm, and Dover is bound to win. At the moment, Dover ordered Pika to lead the army and weapons to go to the kingdom of Osno first. On the day of the decisive battle, he will go personally. Due to Dover's secret promotion, the war between Osno, Prodence, and Katya is in full swing, and the period of decisive battle is just around the corner. King Osno was overjoyed at the arrival of Pika and others as promised. A banquet in the palace to reward Dressrosa's reinforcements seemed to celebrate the victory of the war ahead of time. On the other hand, the kingdoms of Prodence and Carthia are also ready to go, ready to teach King Osno, who has been reluctant to live and provoke a war, a vicious lesson. At this time, King Elisabello II in the palace of the King of Plotinus is discussing military affairs with his military advisor Da Gama. Elisabello II said, "Ha, the hateful King Osno. How dare to look down on me so much, I must make him look good." Da Gama squeezed his mustache and smiled. That King Osno was so stupid that he started a war against the 2 countries at the same time. But the most stupid thing about him is, Da Gama saw that he was practicing. The King of Fists glanced. "I don't know how powerful your king's fist is, your majesty." Elisabello II once broke a fortress with a punch, and his punch is known as the king's fist. Da Gama even boasted that even the 4 emperors couldn't take the king's fist. Of course, this is an ignorant language that he doesn't even know how powerful the 4 emperors are. Ha! Ha! Elisabello II kept shaking his fists and sneered. "I will kill Osno's army with 1 blow in the decisive battle." So far, Elisabello II has not used the Fist of Kings, just to give Osno a big one in the decisive battle. This idea was originally very good, but unfortunately, Elisabello II did not know that his people and his country had long been trapped in an invisible master. No matter what his plan or premeditated, he was destined to be in vain. Dressrosa, a small town on the coast. Violet, who had just returned home, looked at everything around him in amazement. Obviously, the scenery has basically not changed, but it gives her a strange feeling that she has gone to the wrong country. Here, is it really Dressrosa? Violet even doubted herself. After a long time, Violet finally found something wrong. It's not that the scenery of Dressrosa has changed, but the people living in this country have changed. As usual, on the street full of laughter, there is no doll toy. At first, Violet thought that those doll toys should be working in an underground factory. But when she looked at it with clairvoyance, she found that it was not like that. Where did those toys go? Could it be that? Violet suddenly had a thought that made her feel ridiculous. How is it possible? Violet murmured with a wry smile, that person, how could he release those doll toys? In her mind, Doflamingo is the most ferocious and terrifying man in the world, and there is no way to show mercy. At this time, Violet saw an ordinary teenager in a small town and accidentally ran into a family guard who was patrolling. "No, this boy is in danger," Violet cried out badly. The so-called family guards were actually vicious pirates in the past. Although this young man hit someone unintentionally, at least he had to break his arm and leg. In all likelihood, he would become a puppet toy. Violet was about to step forward to relieve the boy, and suddenly saw that the family guard only cursed viciously. "I don't have eyes." Then, he turned around and left. And what shocked Violet even more was that the boy looked at the back of the faraway guard, and he muttered, "Ha, what a look. When I grow up, I will become a member of the family, and I will definitely be worse than you. Great." While muttering, he touched a gray card on his chest. Violet looked at it, but it was a card that recorded his name, address, and portrait. From the content of the card, Violet learned that the boy was named Pat. "Hi, little Pat." Violet smiled and stepped forward. She wanted to ask the boy in a great confusion. "Just now. Why did you say you want to be a member of the family?" Although Doflamingo deceived, he became the savior of the Dressrosa nation. But the people at the bottom of the family who often humiliate the people do not have the slightest affection for them, let alone want to join the family. "Hello, sister." Turning his head and seeing the beautiful Violets, Pat immediately called his sister sweetly. But when I caught a glimpse of Violet's empty chest, his attitude immediately became casual and undisciplined. "My sister's question is really nonsense. Of course the man has to climb up," little Pater said with his head held high. Violet became angry for a while, and this kid changed his face faster than flipping a book. "Smelly boy, speak to my old lady." Violet grabbed Pat's ear and said fiercely. Under Dover for so many years, Violet has long been no longer the innocent princess. "Ah yo, it hurts, don't pull it." Pat hurriedly begged for mercy. Next, Pat honestly answered every question of Violet. From Pat's mouth, Violet learned about the changes in Dressrosa over the past half-month. The king issued a new decree and Dressrosa underwent a large-scale restructuring. Family members can no longer bully the people at will as before, and offenders will be severely punished. The card on Pat's chest is called the Medal of Identity, which must be worn by every citizen. Ordinary civilians' medals are gray, family members are silver, and family officials are gold. The color of the medal represents the level of status, and the treatment they enjoy is naturally different. Just now, the reason why Pat changed his face so quickly was because Violet didn't wear a medal on his chest, and he thought that Violet was just an ordinary civilian. As long as you can prove your strength in front of the family cadres, you can become a member of the family. I, Pat, must change the medal to silver. Thinking back to Pate's rhetoric when he was leaving, and the firm light gleaming in his eyes, Violet couldn't help but shake his heart. "Dover, what is your purpose for doing this?" Violet light brown eyes looked at Dressrosa's tallest building. "There is the residence of the supreme king of this country. Although the distance is very far away, with the ability to stare at the fruit, Violet can still see clearly that the stalwart and terrifying man is sitting on the golden throne, drinking wine. Oh, dear Violet, you are back." Dover held the clear glass containing the scarlet wine in his right hand, looked at the sexy woman who opened the door and walked in, and said with a smile. The code name of a woman in the family is Violet, with beautiful long brown hair and a pair of charming and deep light brown eyes. She was wearing a long pink Madara dress with a purple base. The red skirt stretched to the lower layer, like a blooming rose, blooming to the porcelain white jade feet covered by purple high-heeled shoes. I have to say that among the women around Dover, Violet is undoubtedly the most feminine. In fact, Violet's real name is Viola, and Dover likes to call her Violet. In the original work, there was a vague hint about the possible relationship between the two of them, but Dover who crossed over knew that although there was indeed some ambiguity between the two, it had not yet developed to that point. "Farewell, young master." Viola tried to squeeze the same respectful smile on her face, but she found that she couldn't do it today. Perhaps with a woman's sixth sense, she faintly noticed that although Dover in front of her has not changed in appearance, some places have become different from before. "What's wrong? Violet, you seem to be in a bad mood." Dover looked playfully. Even though Viola was an extremely beautiful woman, Dover did not forget that the woman in the original book easily betrayed him. As the subjugated princess, Viola has always hidden the fire of revenge deep in her heart. Now that Dover knew this, how could he still allow such a thing to happen in the future? Nothing, young master. Viola smirked and looked away. It's just that Dressrosa has changed a lot when I was away. Young master, do you have any new goals? Maybe I can help. Purpose? Seeing Viola's words insincere, and still trying to hide himself, Dover smiled evilly. There is no special purpose, but it is to make Dressrosa stronger. Eating the weak is the eternal truth of this world. Violet, you should know it too, right? Viola was silent. How could she not know the truth about the strong eating of the weak? 3 years ago, it was precisely because of the weakness of the Liku clan that the man in front of him was easily destroyed. But young master, there should be some other reasons for this, right? Viola always feels that things are not that simple. You are still as smart as before. Suddenly Dover stood up, pacing forward, and came to Viola. Viola only felt a powerful haki rushing towards her face, almost suffocating her. Dover stretched out a finger to pick up Viola's smooth and pointed chin, and looked at the latter's eyes, as if his voice came from the abyss. If you want to know, then use your abilities to explore it yourself, Violet Yo. Viola's skin couldn't help but shudder slightly. What kind of look is that? Furious? Arrogant? Indifferent? Arrogant? Pitch black? No, no, even all the obscure words in the world can't describe the terrible look in the man's eyes. Viola turned her head in panic, her voice trembling. The subordinate dare not. In the process of turning her head, Dover's fingertips glided across the delicate skin of her jaw. Dover suddenly squeezed Viola's chin, turned her head back, and shouted in a low voice. Look into my eyes. The low and fierce voice made Viola even more alarmed, and Dover's next words made her face extremely pale. Violet Yo, I know you fear me and hate me. In the past 3 years, I don't even know how many thoughts have been made to assassinate me. But I don't care at all. Do you know why? Dover's lips slowly moved closer to Viola's crystal clear ears. Because, you are too weak. Wang. It was like being hit by a thunderbolt in his head. Viola could barely support it. She trembled with pale lips. Because of weakness. So I dare not make any moves. I dare not expose my thoughts. Even, they have to put on a smile every day to please their enemies. The former princess, you said, am I right? Dover's cruel words were like steel needles piercing deeply into Viola's heart. Viola broke down and burst into tears. When Dover let go of her jaw, Viola slumped weakly to the ground like a flower without a stem. She didn't know when Dover learned the true thoughts in her heart, or in fact always knew it. But that didn't matter anymore. At this moment, facing the man in front of her, she couldn't even give birth to the idea of resistance. But Viola felt relieved for a while, because from now on, she would no longer need to pretend to be herself. Doflamingo, you bastard. Bastard. I hate you. Collecting the last courage, Viola screamed out what she had already held in her heart, and then lay on the ground and burst into tears. Dover, who returned to the throne, looked condescendingly at the poor woman below, but there was no mercy in his eyes. He is not a foolish fool. For those who are destined to betray him in the future, Dover has only 2 ways to do it. One is to completely obliterate it. The other is to completely destroy the opponent's line of defense, conquer the opponent's mind, and make it no longer think of betrayal. Viola's ability to stare at the fruit is extremely useful for Dover's future plans, so Dover decided to adopt the second method, which is more cruel to Viola. Dover flicked his finger, pulling the thread of his fingertip. An old man with gray hair rushed out from behind the palace. When he saw Viola who was crying, the old man immediately wailed, Viola, my poor daughter. This person is King Liku, and he has been controlled by Dover's parasite string, hiding behind the palace. After hearing his daughter's experience over the years, Liku Wang was already in tears. Father? Viola jerked his head up. 3 years later, the father and daughter met again. However, neither of them had the joy of reunion, only grief and despair. Viola suddenly woke up and looked at the man on the throne, tears still on his haggard face, and she was pitiful. Please, let go of my father, Dover, with a pleading expression. King Liku turned his head away and couldn't bear to look. At this moment, he would rather die by himself than his daughter begs his enemy in such a low voice. Relax, I don't have any interest in killing your father and daughter. Dover showed a smile in the eyes of Viola and King Liku, no doubt indistinguishable from the devil. The show has just begun, how can the most important audience be missing? The bullfighting arena is the most chaotic place in Dressrosa. Because of the arbitrary laws of the Don Quixote family, Marine cannot intervene even if a major crime occurs here. It is a paradise for robbers, villains, and criminals. All villains who advocate violence regard this as a paradise. And in such a bloody and fierce place, there is a girl contestant who is not a bit offensive, who is incompatible with the atmosphere here, and looks very strange. Ahahaha. Next, it is the last player's turn to come on stage. She is also the only woman in this event and a rare beautiful girl. She is. Under the host's provocative words, the atmosphere of the entire bullfighting arena was suddenly pushed to the climax. People raised their ears, opened their eyes, and were very curious about the last player. She is. The host deliberately showed off before shouting into the microphone. She is the princess of fantasy, the invincible daughter Rebecca. Chi, there was a boo on the audience stage. At the same time, the bullfighting arena VIP seats. Diamante, the top manager here, is respectfully welcoming the arrival of the young master. Young master, I didn't expect that you would also be interested in that yellow-haired girl's game. But when Diamante saw Viola and King Liku following Dover, he suddenly realized that a playful smile appeared on the square-like face. Young master, you are really nasty. Click. Rebecca, dragging heavy metal armor, slowly walked onto the arena. She has long pink hair and only wears the necessary armor all over her body, exposing large areas of white skin. Although she developed very early, she is about 1 meter 6 meters old, about the age of sugar, but her immature and thin arms are still not enough to easily swing an iron sword without a sharp edge in her hand. Fortunately, she had studied swordsmanship with Mr. Soldier for several years. With the backwater sword dance, she has not lost in the arena. Walking to the center of the arena and listening to the huge boos from the surrounding audience, Rebecca pressed her lips tightly to prevent her tears from falling. Not long ago, she was caught by soldiers of the Don Quixote family and thrown into this bullfighting arena. She was named a beautiful girl sword fighter and became a popular gimmick. Rebecca, seeing standing alone in the center of the arena, like a niece abandoned by the whole world, the tears in Viola's eyes could not be restrained. She had heard the news of Rebecca's arrest before, but she never had the courage to face it. At this time, seeing Rebecca being targeted by all the other contestants and being despised by everyone in the audience, Viola felt extremely regretful. Why didn't I rescue Rebecca at the beginning, and let her be so young to endure such inhuman pain? King Liku closed his old eyes and couldn't bear to see how his granddaughter was suffering. The game has already begun. Under the attack of a group of strong and fierce fanatics, Rebecca was surrounded by dangers and almost fell into the water several times. People are still shouting, "Kill that girl! Go and die honestly, descendants of Yu-kun! Ha ha ha! That girl can't hold it anymore!" The excited shouts of people, like a steel knife, struck the hearts of Viola and King Liku. Painful? Hate me? Dover leaned on the wide soft chair and looked at the father and daughter faintly. Enough, Doflamingo! King Liku opened his eyes and yelled angrily, unable to bear anymore. If you want to kill or slash, come at me. Don't torture my daughter and granddaughter. Viola pleaded sadly. Dover, can you spare Rebecca? No matter what you ask for, I will promise you. Dover couldn't help but sneer at the corner of his mouth. As a subjugated princess, what qualifications do you have to ask me? Viola was desperate, squatting on the ground hiding his face and weeping. What? At this time, King Liku couldn't control the grief in his heart. The tragedy of his daughter and granddaughter is right in front of him. If he can remain indifferent, what face is there to live in this world? King Liku rushed towards Dover desperately, bullet string. Accompanied by an indifferent voice, King Liku thumped and fell. He didn't seem to feel the pain in his knees, and his eyes were splitting. Doflamingo, you are a wicked party that does no evil, sooner or later you will get retribution. Evil party? Retribution? Dover laughed, playing with the invisible thread in his hand. I think I am a good person. He slowly said, King Liku, you should thank me and retrieve Dressrosa again. Even without me 3 years ago, other pirates will come to this country sooner or later. In this era of great pirates, in this ambitious new world, there is no anyone can be spared. Li Kuang fell silent abruptly. No matter how much he hated Dover, he had to admit that what the other party said was right. Although the people of Dressrosa used to live and work in peace and contentment, they were very poor, and it was impossible to survive the intensified era of great pirates. Squatting on the ground, Viola stopped crying with her arms around her knees. Compared with King Liku, who has staring fruit and has been a cadre at Don Quixote family for 3 years, she is more aware of how chaotic and cruel this era is. Dressrosa with low strength and superior geography, even without Doflamingo, will be favored by other big pirates. At that time, Dressrosa's situation will probably be worse than then. Suddenly the little guy named Pat, the firm light in his eyes when he left, and the doll toys that had suddenly disappeared appeared in his mind. Viola's heart was in confusion for a while, and her eyes suddenly became extremely complicated when she looked up at the man who would never be able to guess.